I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna be that girl.
Watch out for me, I'm about to close.
What up, y'all? Welcome back to my channel, and today's video is gonna be a tad bit different. So I did a poll earlier this week asking you guys on Instagram, would you be interested in a video of me just talking to you about my personal story with PTSD, depression, and anxiety? And the majority of you guys said yes, which was surprising, but scary, because now I really have to talk about it, and I don't really talk about things like this a lot, but you guys wanted it, so we're gonna talk about it. I have this little notebook here with some key points that I want to hit throughout this video. I wrote down some notes just to make sure I stay on track and don't get too crazy with how much detail I go into, or just give out information that's not necessary. I want to make this straight to the point and let you guys understand my personal history and what I'm going through right now. Alright, so I want to say to start off, I'm not going to go into too much detail about specific situations when I'm telling certain stories, but I'm going to give you enough information so you guys can understand where I'm coming from. And I think it's important to understand that, like, genetically, I have a higher chance, like, I'm predispositioned to have some sort of mental health issue because of the fact that it runs in my family. My mother has mental health issues, and on top of that, I'm a Cancer, so you guys know I'm already sensitive as shit to begin with. I'm a sensitive ass thug, that's what I like to call it. But yeah, so I'm sensitive, and I feel a lot of feelings all the time just by my nature, so it just makes everything worse. So last year, 2018, and there's a couple videos on it, but I really feel like last year was the worst year of my life. What it was professionally, like in my career, things were going crazy. In my personal life, things were going crazy, and I just kind of felt lost. It was just so much going on, and I was deployed last year, and I honestly, that was the first time in my life that I really contemplated suicide. And it wasn't just like, oh, I want to kill myself, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I made a plan of how I was going to commit suicide and make it look like an accident, so nobody would guess that that's what it was, because nobody really understood the amount of struggle that I had last year. Like, I talked to a couple people about it, some of my closest friends knew, but as far as like my leadership and my soldiers, like, nobody really had a clue of how I was actually feeling and what I was actually going through. And I didn't want them to, because I wanted to still be able to do my job. I didn't want anybody to feel like my personal life was impacting my ability to be a leader. So yeah, I contemplated suicide, and it took everything in me not to do it. And the only thing I kept saying was, it wasn't fair to my soldiers if I was to commit suicide or be gone and leave them without any leadership. Like, because the unit I was in was bad, the leadership in the unit was crazy. It was a lot, and I just didn't want them to deal with that on their own. So that really helped pull me out of that dark place, and then just thinking about coming home made it better for me. And I made a promise to myself, like on my 30th birthday. You can look on my Instagram and see the post that I had posted about on my 30th birthday. I made a promise to myself that I would never allow myself to feel the way I felt that year again. Like, when I left that deployment, when I got out of Cuba, I made sure I left all of those feelings there in Cuba. Like, regardless of what I was going through personally, regardless of what I was going through professionally, I would not allow myself to ever feel that way again. And since then, I haven't. I've taken steps to ensure that my mental health is a priority. And I never thought about it before then. Like, for me, when you're sad or when you're upset, when your emotions take control, it's just something you got to figure that shit out on your own. But it wasn't until that moment when I knew on my 30th birthday that something wasn't right and I couldn't do it on my own. I had to seek help, and that's what I've been doing. So not only was there things going on, you know, with my work situation, I was also in a position to where my body was not the same as it used to be. I'm getting injured left and right, and some of the injuries were serious. As you guys know now, I had a surgery on my shoulder and then the stuff going on with my hip, and it really completely discouraged me because my body is all I have. Like, outside of the military, my business is based around working out. And then even inside of the military, I'm a combat engineer. So it's very physical. And once my body started messing up on me, I felt like my world came crashing down because I just didn't know how I was going to be able to do all of the things that I'm committed to do without being healthy. So with all the injuries and stuff, it ended up crossing over into my professional life to where I physically cannot do some of the stuff that I'm obligated to do in the military. I can't do sit-ups right now. I can't run. I obviously can't do push-ups for a while. I tried doing some wall push-ups at physical therapy, and that's about as far as I can get. But with my hip, it's more of a long-term thing. Like, I don't foresee myself getting surgery on my hip. That's the last resort. And because of that, I know that I'm going to consistently be in pain with things that I do. And I can't fulfill my obligations with this pain. So, in turn, that stemmed into me being processed for an MEB, which is a medical evaluation board, to hopefully, once it's over, medically retire me from the military. Whether or not I get a good percentage or whatever, I don't know. And because of that, that has added so much stress onto my life because now I'm worried about whether or not they're going to medically retire me or medically separate me, because there's a big difference between the two. Whether or not they're going to give me a good percentage, whether or not the VA is going to give me a good percentage. And then on top of that, everything that I've done with my life for the past 14 years is over. Like, my career in the military is done. And I never saw myself getting out of the military early. I wanted to do my 20 years, if not more, and now I physically I cannot. And coming to terms with that is probably one of the hardest things I've had to do in my life, because I gave my life to this uniform. I've been in the military since I was 17 years old, and I'm going on 14 years in July. And I never thought about what happens next. Like, yeah, I have my business and everything, but my business to me is my passion. I never looked at it as being my job. And now, outside of the military, like, that's all I have, and that's going to become my full-time focus. And it's scary. It's scary when you've been doing the same thing for 14 years, and then all of a sudden your whole world shifts, and you have to figure out what you're supposed to do about it. And that alone has added so much stress, anxiety, and depression to me because I don't know what's next. I never thought I would be in this position to where I'm even happy to get out of the uniform because of all of the things that I went through in 2018. Like, I saw some stuff that I shouldn't have saw. I was placed in positions that I shouldn't have been placed in, and it changed my outlook on how I felt about the military. I was all gung-ho about the military for the entire time I've been in. Anybody ask me how do I feel about the military? I love it. It's great. I literally feel like the military saved my life. When I was about to graduate high school, I didn't know whether I was going to end up on the streets. I knew I wasn't going to college right away because my parents weren't going to pay for it, and I didn't have the money to pay for it. And it just gave me the stability that I needed. And I've always appreciated it for that reason. But as time went on, you start to see that people can't separate politics and their positions in the Army, and they use things to their advantage. And they take advantage of soldiers, they take advantage of situations, and it's just something that I can't be a part of anymore. So it's bittersweet to be getting out. Like, I know that it's time to go, but the fact that I'm going out this way is a little bit heartbreaking. Yeah. And like I told my boss when I tried to explain how I feel, it's like I feel like I'm in an abusive relationship. You know what I mean? Like, it was good for a while. Like, we were in the honeymoon phase for a while, and then shit just went bad. And I know I need to leave, but I don't know how to leave, and I don't know what comes next. And that's exactly how I feel about getting out of the military soon. And I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional because it has been such a important part of my life. And I've always said I didn't want my military career to be my identity. Like, there's more to me than the uniform, but in a sense it kind of did become who I was. Like, I lived for my soldiers. I lived for I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna be that girl. But just know that that has made everything 15, 20 times worse. And along with, dealing with the fact that I'm getting out, obviously my outlet to relieve stress and to feel better, the gym, I can't do that anymore. Like, I can't do it how I used to do it. So instead of going to the gym and lifting a bunch of heavy ass weights and feel like I'm progressing, I'm getting stronger or I'm getting leaner, I'm going into the gym and I'm starting from the bottom up, and it stresses me out more to be in there because I know what I'm capable of, and now all of that is just erased and I have to start over from the bottom. So yeah, it gives me motivation. I'm like building myself all over again, but at the same time I continually think about the past and where I was, and I'm like, I'll never be able to do some of that shit that I used to do. Well, never say never, but that's how I feel, so that weighs on me heavy, that I don't have that outlet anymore. That it sucks. But lately, as the healing process progresses with my shoulder, I have been pushing myself more, and I've actually been to the gym. This last week is when I started actually tracking my macros again and cutting, and since then I've pushed myself to the limits in the gym. I've gone to the point where, okay, the pain says no, I can't do it anymore, because I refuse to let this shit knock me down and not be able to pick myself back up. Yeah, so it's just like a vicious circle. Things start to look up, and then I think about where I was to compare to where I am now, and it brings me back to that place. With all that being said, without going to too much detail about the things that happened, I just have felt lost lately. Like, I don't know what's next for me, and it's scary. It's scary. I have come to the conclusion, though, that I do want to retire in Florida, so I'm going to be making that move as soon as I get a chance, whenever they medically retire me. And the other thing is the not knowing. Like, when I submitted all my paperwork, the response I got was, okay, yes, you need to be medically retired, but this process takes a long time. It could take from 6 months to 2 years. So how do you prepare for something that you don't know when it's coming? I don't know what's going to happen, so I don't feel secure, and it's scary. And I want to take that next step to find a house in Florida and do all this, but I can't do that because I have no idea when I'll be making that move. It's frustrating. Everything is just completely frustrating. It's hard not to be anxious. It's hard not to be depressed, especially about my physical situation, because I can't do anything. Well, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do about it. I got surgery. I'm going through PT, but the rate of recovery for me, I feel like, is super slow. And everybody keeps saying it's normal. It's shoulder surgery. It's going to take 6 months to a year. But I don't want to wait 6 months to a year. I mean, I don't have a choice, obviously, but it's frustrating. It's super frustrating when you're not making progress, So, now enough of my sob story. I am going to tell you guys the steps that I have taken to ensure that I don't allow myself to get in a dark place and stay in that dark place like I was last year. Because it literally was this time last year. Well, it was March last year when I made the plan to commit suicide. So I'm in a whole different space right now, and I'm so grateful that I am. And there's numerous things that I've had to force myself to do that I never wanted to do before in order to get to this space. So the first thing I did is I sought help. After months and months of just being sad and not being able to pull myself out of that place, I finally decided to go to my primary care doctor, told him that I was feeling these feelings, not suicidal because I'm not suicidal anymore, but I've been anxious, depressed, and having nightmares. Nightmares is a big thing too. Like, God, these nightmares, yeah. So I made it a point to go to him, tell him how I was feeling, and right off the bat, he immediately referred me to mental health, which was great, but then I felt like am I crazy? Like, I start to think, is it really that bad? Like, do I really need this help? Could I get through it myself? Or should I go to see somebody? And ultimately the decision I made was to go to see somebody, because I don't have a choice. I'm not gonna risk being in a bad position again just because I have too much pride to go to a therapist. So upon my referral to mental health, I got an appointment with a psychologist and a psychiatrist, because according to them, it works better to be treated by both at the same time, to have medication and someone to talk to. So that's what I've been doing. I go every 2 weeks right now, and I talk to my therapist, and then she sends the notes to the psychiatrist, and he gives me medication. So right now, the medication I have is Zoloft for the depression, and then it's supposed to help with like depression and anxiety. I don't have a separate anxiety medicine, but then for the sleep and for the nightmares, I have trazodone. When I was first prescribed the medication, I did not take it. I did not take it because I didn't want to be that guy who had to have medication to live a normal life. But then I really can't sleep. Like, I'm getting 2 to 3 hours of sleep. Some of it was due to a work schedule because I was working 2 jobs, but I'm not now. But other than that, it's just like I can't. It took a long time to fall asleep, and I don't stay asleep, and those nightmares kill me. So I finally started taking the trazodone, and it does, I will tell you, it does help me sleep. Like, it helps me fall asleep fast, but it doesn't keep me asleep, and it doesn't help with the nightmares. And I've told the psychiatrist about it, and so we're going to be adding in another medicine that's supposed to help specifically with nightmares, on top of the trazodone. And then as far as the Zoloft goes, you know, I feel like the doses they gave me was really high. So I do my best not to take that much. I take one a day, and so far, I mean, I haven't noticed any changes. But they say it's supposed to take a month to 2 months to kick in to really feel the changes of it. So, I mean, we'll see how that goes. I'm not using the medicine as a crutch, but I am doing what I need to do to be healthy mentally, because I can't go back to where I was at. Um, on top of that, I use a salt lamp in my room, and you guys can say it's a fucking placebo, whatever. I don't care. I feel like it works. So at night, I turn on my salt lamp, and I just like breathe in all the good energy that's emitted from the salt lamp and let go of all the negativity, and I meditate. And I meditate using an app called the Calm app. I paid for a year subscription, and so at night I'll pick what I want to meditate for, whether I want to work towards having better sleep or reducing anxiety or being mindful, and I just meditate with the salt lamp on, and it feels really, really good to be mindful of how I'm feeling, but not allowing those feelings to overtake me. And so I know I said that, working out was stressful for me, but I've tried to change my mindset and go in there with positive thoughts and really try to use working out as a tool to relieve stress like I did before. But not only that, just I try to motivate myself each time I'm in the gym, whether I do an extra rep, whether I go up in weight, and having, I'm going to be honest, having a workout partner helps so much, because before, when I was working out, when this process started, I didn't have a workout partner, so then I was just beating myself up. But having Taylor there to work out with, it really, really motivates me to keep going and not be down on myself. And overall, having Taylor over these last few months to be there with me, because when I found out I was going through the MEB, and I was going to be put out, I say put out, medically retired, medically separated, I really had a breakdown, and she was there every step of the way, and she's really been a support system for me throughout this whole process. When I cry, she just holds me. She doesn't ask a bunch of questions. There was a point a couple of weeks ago, I think it was last week, I had my first anxiety attack. And it was the worst thing I've ever felt in my life. And I don't even know how it was triggered. It was midnight. I was on the side of the bed. And then all of a sudden, I felt like I was going to throw up. I couldn't breathe. My hands started shaking. And I felt lightheaded. And then it was something that I've never felt before. And Taylor was there, and she just held me. And then all of a sudden, I just cried. Just started bawling. And I was breathing hard. It was the worst feeling I've ever felt in my life. And she was there for me, and I appreciate that because I've never felt that before. And she has anxiety herself, so she kind of knew what to do to calm me down. But I never want to feel that way again. I can't control the anxiety attacks, but it was just the worst thing that I have ever felt. And I kept saying, I feel like something's wrong with me. Something is wrong inside of me. I do not feel right. I don't know why I have this fucking overwhelming feeling of anxiety. I feel like something bad is going to happen and I can't turn it off. Just fucking went crazy for about 15 minutes is how long it lasted. And then once it passed, I was like, the fuck was that about? You know, like I couldn't put a pinpoint on a trigger. Like I don't know what triggered it, but it just happened. So yeah, having someone there to be a support system really, really, really helps me. And then lastly, you know, what they always say, positive affirmations and positive thoughts. That it really changes things. When you think negative, the whole world comes crashing down and you attract negative things. When you think positive, you attract positive things. And that's real. It's really real. And I try to make sure my self-talk daily is positive. Like I understand there's going to be points where it's going to be negative. I'm going to be like, oh, I'm tired or whatever. But overall, I try to have a positive mindset throughout the day. And yeah, so that's my story with PTSD, anxiety, and depression. And why I say PTSD, because I was actually diagnosed recently with PTSD in my military file. And that itself was heartbreaking for me because yes, I know I seeked out help, but I never wanted to be labeled as a person with a mental health problem because that fucks with your psyche. You know what I mean? It really, really does. So when he gave me the diagnosis of PTSD and he actually put it in my records that I have PTSD, severe anxiety, and severe depression, I broke down. I broke down in his office and I was like, listen, can we just talk about this, not put it on my record, and figure out how to get through it? And he was like, no, this is going to play a part in your MEB as well, because you are not mentally sound. And that sucks to hear somebody say that, but it's the fucking reality. And like he said, the numbers don't lie. Like after I took all the tests, like it was very obvious that I had PTSD. I know that looked crazy, like I was just swiping the air, but there was some lit. So anyway, I hope this little rant, talk, spiel, whatever, helps somebody, and it opens a dialogue about mental health. Like on social media and on YouTube, you only see what we want you to see, and like that's all positive. Everything's all happy-go-lucky, rainbows and sunshine. But the reality is, in real life, there are things that hurt me. There are things that I'm going through, and I have not expressed that to you guys. And I want to be very open with you guys. And I also want to tell you what I do to help me in those situations. So maybe it might help you too. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. You know, make sure you subscribe, like, comment, share, all of that good stuff. And if you stuck with me to the end of this video, you're a real OG. I appreciate you. And next time you see me, it'll be more positive. I'll be back to being myself. But I appreciate you guys for letting me do this.